Good afternoon, I'm Shannon Borns. After browsing through various titles on Amazon.com and reading their reviews, marketing guru Seth Godin's book, All Marketers Are Liars, the underground classic that explains how marketing really works and why authenticity is the best marketing of all, caught my attention. See, we learned that everyone is a marketer, and now someone is claiming that all of us are liars? I had to investigate. Mr. Godin makes a case that all marketers are storytellers, and the better you tell the story of your good, the better you have marketed it, thus creating interest and revenue. He goes so far as to state that we lie to ourselves about products and services because of a story we frame around the idea of that good or the product or service. And I quote, "You believe things that aren't true." Let me say that a different way. Many things that are true because you believe them. We believe what we want to believe, and once we believe something, it becomes a self-fulfilling truth. See, Seth creates an atmosphere that engages you to think outside of your normal realm. His goal is to get you to think beyond the traditional marketing schemes and to look at the new era of storytelling. People have seen it all before, hyped up commercials promising things that the product just can't deliver. Seth's position is that people need a story to believe in, one that they can immerse themselves in and become one with, a reason to lie to themselves. So here are some key points that make this book worthy of reading. First, no matter what business you are in, creating stories about you and your product or service is critical. That is what is going to engage the consumer and get them to bite on your hook. That is why I recommend All Marketers Are Liars. See, your story is your brand. Your story has to be different from what consumers have already heard. They do not have time to hear about all your benefits and metrics that make yours a better product. They only have time to buy into a story that fits their life, one that makes them feel or perceive something that they can agree with. What story are you telling? If you don't tell a story directly, the consumer is going to tell their own about your product or service. Marketers need to take that opportunity to mold the ideas of the consumer before they have a chance to skew the image you desire to portray. You have to mold your image by telling your story. Mr. Godin brings out 5 steps for creating your story. These apply to any organization you may be involved in. The themes throughout can help a marketer take their product from mediocre to an extreme demand. My next point is, stories must be relevant. Either you're going to tell stories that spread, or you will become irrelevant. If you want your product to be relevant, you must create a relevant story, one of authenticity. As Seth states, stories are shortcuts we use because we're too overwhelmed by data to discover all the details. In today's market, you have to go beyond reciting just data to living a relevant story. A story draws people in. Seth explains just how a story can benefit you, how they make you and your company relevant. It doesn't matter what we see as truth, because in marketing, the truth is whatever the consumer believes. There is no difference between your story and your product. You have to sell your story. Your story becomes the product you're selling. The story is what people buy, it's not the product. Identifying your story means identifying your product, exactly what it is you're selling consumers. When you have identified your story, you have to market the story. Marketing is all about the story, so sell your story and your product will follow. Next, Godin gives attributes of great stories. Godin says this, that stories that are great are worthy to be listened to. He gives several points, and I've given you 8 right here. The first one is it must be true. Not because it's factual, but because it's consistent and authentic. Consumers will find inconsistencies in stories. The second one is stories, great stories, they make a promise of fun, money, safety, etc. It is bold and audacious. That's what the promise is. It's beyond good. It's exceptional. Number 3, great stories are trusted. No one trusts anymore, so we must earn credibility through our story. The fourth thing is that great stories are subtle. The less we spell out for the consumer, the more powerful the story becomes. Consumers drawing their own conclusions is far more powerful than announcing the punchline. Number 5 is great stories happen fast. They engage as soon as the story is in place. First impressions are the most powerful impressions we have. Number 6, great stories appeal to the senses. Logic is overridden by senses in a great story. That's why we love fairy tales. That's why we love all these other classic books, because it appeals to senses, not to logic. A great story, number 7, must be coherent. They don't contradict themselves. The smells match the decor, matches the service, and so on and so forth. And the 8th one I have here is that great stories must agree with the worldview of the consumer. They don't teach the consumer anything new. They only agree with what the consumer already believes, with the structure of their worldview. Finally, Godin outlines his 5 steps to storytelling for his readers, giving them a strategy to storytelling. Step 1 is this: the worldview and frames got there before you did. A consumer's worldview affects the way he notices things and understands them. If a story is framed in terms of that worldview, he's more likely to believe it. Step 2. People only notice the new and then make a guess. Consumers notice something only when it changes. They don't notice the old because it passes by. They filter through the things that they see daily. They notice the new and then they make a guess based on what they see. They don't take time to analyze the data. Step 3. First impressions start the story. A first impression causes the consumer to make a very quick, permanent judgment about what he was just exposed to. So make those count. Step 4. Great marketers tell stories we believe. The marketer tells a story about what the consumer notices. The story changes the way the consumer experiences the product or service, and he tells himself a lie. Consumers make a prediction about what will happen next. Consumers rationalize anything that doesn't match that prediction. So say they buy a product, and they will justify that it's a good product based on what they previously considered. Step 5. Marketers with authenticity, they thrive. The authenticity of the story determines whether it will survive scrutiny long enough for the consumer to tell the story to other people. Sometimes marketing is so powerful it can actually change the worldview of someone who experiences. But no marketing succeeds if it can't find an audience that already wants to believe the story being told. Marketers with authenticity thrive. So Godin highlights his main thoughts in the book into 5 main points. He condenses them into this: don't just tell me the facts, tell me a story instead. Consumers don't want the facts, they want a story. Number 2, be remarkable, be consistent, and be authentic. These things are what drives your story. Number 3, tell your story to people who are inclined to believe it. Don't tell it to somebody who doesn't care or who has a varying worldview than what you're trying to come across with. Number 4, marketing is powerful, so use it wisely. Marketing can change the world. Look what it's doing in social media now and how we buy and sell our products. And the 5th one is live the lie. Whatever you build up as your story, you have to live that story for consistency and because you have to buy into your own product as well. So in conclusion, while reading this book, the author seemed very new age in that he states the idea that everyone makes their own truth. Well, this could offend some people when applying the method to the church or various other truth-based operations. However, if we sit back and listen to what Seth Godin is truly saying, we can see he is on to something here. People tend to believe what they want regardless of the truth. As marketers, we have to be able to appeal to such a market. This is the way of the world we live. And to reach the world we live, we must identify the stories they tell themselves and then construct a coherent story to their worldview while not changing the truth. The principles in this book could be just what some marketers need to send them over the top. You may have a great product, but that product won't sell itself. It needs a story. Marketers should enter into the new arena of storytelling because the mass media age is dying out quickly. Consumers don't want another ad, they want a story that makes their life coherent. Marketers have to tell that story to sell their product. So pick up a copy of Seth Godin's book, All Marketers Are Liars, and discover a new world of possibilities. I highly recommend it, and I think you will enjoy the book as well. Thank you.